And um, so he'd been, kind of on and off of eating, which is something that people that are getting ready to transition to the next do. But he kept saying that it was because, he had a lot of breathing problems. He had severe lung issues, severe COPD, and that other one that I could never remember the name of. Is it emphysema? Yeah, I think it's that. And he was a heavy smoker. He did quit years before all this, but because he was a military vet, he was in Vietnam, and it's a whole thing with the people that he was stationed with and him. They all came down with the illnesses related to Agent Orange, so which is another story, but um, so he believes that it was caused from that because he also had other things along the way, that were related to that. And so when people with breathing problems like that eat and they feel like their stomach has swollen up and they can't breathe correctly, um, which is a true fact, that happens. Um, they have a hard time breathing when they eat. So a lot of them, will severely cut down what they eat. So he had done that. And this one night, um, he was, seemingly good. And he told me, I think by tomorrow, Dawn, I'm going to be ready to eat. And I'm looking forward to it. So I thought, oh, okay, good. I'm going to make sure I cook something good for him. And woke up the next day and he was pretty much unconscious. And so I can't remember how long before that. It wasn't very long. But after one of his last hospital visits, he decided to get on hospice. And, which don't get me wrong, I don't know. I had mixed feelings about that, but we don't need to get into that. But they really don't, they didn't really do much. They'd come, ask if, they'd ask how he was doing, take his vitals, um, sometimes give him, a sponge bath, and that was it. So that day that he woke up unconscious, mostly unconscious, I should say, if you would wake him up or try to wake him up, it would take a little bit. And if you asked him a question, you could get an answer out of him, but it may take a while. You may have to do it, quite a few times. But so they decided he slept in a recliner because he couldn't lay down flat because it made his breathing worse. Hold on a sec. I gotta get my water. I'm talking too much. So they had decided that he had to be in a hospice bed. So they brought one in, and then pretty much from there he, was more unconscious. I don't know the proper term. And he would do a lot of screaming for help all the time. And that would just like kind of break my heart, And I'd go to him and I'd say, what do you want? What do you need? What's wrong? What do you need help with? And let me just say, my dad had an extreme fear of death. I mean, just terrified of death. So when I'd go and I'd ask him, what do you need? He'd say, I need to wake up. I need to wake up. Wake me up. And I'd say, well, you are awake. You're talking to me. You're awake. It's okay. And then he'd nod his head yes and go back to sleep. And then a couple of minutes later, repeat, and this went on for days. And so finally, one day after my birthday, I was so grateful for that. My birthday is September 7th. He passed September 8th. And of course, depression again and, all that. And I just started to come out of that again. And May of 2022, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer, bronchial cancer. And I think there was a third, but I just can't remember. It was such a traumatic time, My poor husband, he'd been going to our doctor for a couple of years, I think, telling him, I'm feeling pain. Let me show you. And he would point right here in your diaphragm and say, I have pain there and in his back. And the doctor would order, tests for his abdomen, but never in the area that my husband said was hurting, which is also a whole other story, but, of just basically how frustrating, So my husband would go back every few months and say, this is not getting better. So then they decided that the pain that he was feeling was from having his gallbladder removed. They decided it was nerve pain. And my husband got so frustrated with the doctor that removed his gallbladder, that he just got up and told him a few things about himself and walked out, never went back. And so my husband gave up, trying to figure out what was going on. He just kind of, thought, well, okay, maybe this doctor is correct. And then he just started getting like little ill here and there, and then a little bit more ill. And then he started vomiting. And so, I had, because of the things that I've seen in my life, there were people before that had cancer in my life before my mom. And I had been telling him, I think you have lung cancer. Would you please go and ask about it? And I told him that I don't know how many times, for how long, and he didn't want to listen to me. And I think, nobody wants to hear that, somebody that you love thinks you're dying. And I understood that, but I got so frustrated. My husband was a heavy smoker. And you know how when you know something is going to happen and you know it, there is nothing that can tell you that it's not going to happen. And I told my mom too that was going to happen if she continued to smoke, and she didn't listen either. And just, that's happened so often in my life. So I kept trying to tell my husband, you've got to quit smoking, before he was diagnosed. And he just wouldn't do it. Sometimes he'd get on Chantix and quit for months. And then for no good reason, start smoking again. And, so finally, I told him again, go to the doctor. Tell him you want this test done. You want to know what's wrong, and so he finally did. And, they called us into the office and told us, you've got lung cancer. And another video.